if you're on video, it means that you'll be live as well. Just to be aware of that, please. God bless you. So I'll just hand over to Doctor to say the opening prayers before we start. God bless you all.
Good evening.
The Father God will be named upon every one of us in the course of this program. God bless you and enjoy your time today. I'll welcome a young man today, a young man that his life has been a bundle of testimony and an inspiration to me. I'm much older than him, but I still get inspired by how he has lived. He has a testimony, and I hope that that testimony blesses you. So please welcome Daniel Adegbie to share his testimony with us. God bless you, Daniel.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Uncle Justin. It's a privilege to share a little testimony of fatherhood, and it's a topic that I think is increasingly important. In fact, T.D. Jakes preached a recent sermon on it. It's been a topic that's been coming up, especially during confinement. Either people have been stuck at home, or people have had time to remunerate on their childhood, or children spending more time with their fathers, and fathers all of a sudden discovering how difficult it is to take care of children 24/7. So it's been an interesting time in terms of fatherhood globally. It's been an interesting year, full stop. And I want to start with the legacy of my grandfather, Dad's dad. And by all accounts, my grandfather was a great man. You know, our lineage is one of chieftaincy and prestige. And I've been told that, you know, my grandfather, he painted the walls of the rooms of his children. My auntie's bedrooms were painted as courtrooms or dentists, hospitals, and Dad's bedroom was painted as a hospital. Dad was intended, he was supposed to be a doctor. And, you know, my granddad loved, I never met him. My granddad loved his children in the best way he could, and he left them with a great legacy. But I remember my dad once saying to me, you know, he doesn't recall ever hugging his dad. And I think I've also had a similar conversation with Uncle Bobga and Tona about affection in the previous generation. And, you know, right now I feel like my dad is definitely overcompensated for that. I feel like Dad is incredibly affectionate. You know, he's constantly loving and hugging us, and the whole congregation can attest to that. And it's clearly something that he has had to teach himself. He's had to stretch himself, because I don't think I feel like everybody's always experimenting, but you have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Nobody's been a father before in this day and age. You haven't been a father in the time of Facebook or Twitter or social media. This is the first time. You haven't been a father in the time of a global pandemic. This is the first time. Nobody can teach you. You just have to roll with it. And there's something to that about embracing life, embracing people, and pushing yourself and being more outgoing that I really respect. And, you know, the older I get, the more I understand how often difficult it can be as well to push yourself outside of that comfort zone. And it might seem small, but even in the start of this conversation, you know, Dad hardly ever calls me by my name. He always calls me son. And it's something I've learned to really appreciate as well, because it's such a term of pride that that helps. You know, I recall a time when I was looking for jobs, and you know, in our society, as a man, if you don't have a job, if you're looking for a job, society has a way of making you feel less than, you know. And it's important that you have someone in your life who, regardless of your situation, still has that sense of pride in you that's unshakable, that it doesn't matter how much money you're bringing in, or how much, if it's zero or if it's a million, you know, that doesn't shift. And I really appreciate the fact that I get called son, and it's a real privilege. It's a deliberate and intentional word that I take pride in too. As men, society breeds us to be stoic and invulnerable, but I feel like dad shows a way to be strong in affection. And the older I get, the more interactions I have with people, especially men of African background. I see how a lot of men just don't know how to show affection, and it needs to be a topic that should be addressed in our local communities. I see it happen all too often, and it cascades because what you see in the home is what you become familiar with. And when I talk to my friends, my close male African friends, it's also an issue. It's an issue that my close friends have struggled with, and they are pushing themselves out of their comfort zones with. And I'm privileged to have had a dad who's stretched himself to show that affection. It's not something I take for granted at all. It's something that shaped me. It's also helped me in my career, because it's even in the workplace, it helps me show a kind affection for others. And typically the engineering environment, I'm an engineer, the typical engineering environment is male dominated. An example I can give is, for example, one of my managers, one of my colleagues, he mentioned randomly that he liked Starbucks coffee. And I knew he had a stressful meeting with a project going on in Kenya. And I just went and got him a coffee out of the blue. He wasn't expecting it. And that kind of affection, that wasn't even a thing to me. I wasn't doing it to buy favor or anything like that. But since that day, this guy will stand my corner for anything. He'll stay late for me. And it's an interesting thing to learn, because not a lot of men see that as weakness sometimes. And in the engineering field, where nobody wants to give ground, it can be, seen in a certain kind of way. But I've learned to be comfortable with that affection myself. And there's definitely more I can do in terms of, there's more I can learn in terms of that. There's more I can stretch myself. But I'm glad that I have that foundation. From a physical point of view, living in Newcastle, I've often been stopped by strangers in Morrison's or Asda, and someone would tap me on the shoulder and say, "Pastor," uh, in the gym, in the pool, in any public space. And it's just something it's something I've had to live with. I was looking at some of Dad's old pictures, and actually now I see how I look a lot more like Dad, actually. When he didn't have gray hair. So that's something I've had to live with. It's now that I'm no longer in Newcastle, it's no problem. Dad loves telling the story of when we went to the gym and someone confused him for my older brother. Yeah. So I don't know whether to take that as an insult for me or a compliment for him. But it's me, being my father's son and looking like my dad and carrying that responsibility is also, I thank God for that. I thank God that I have someone to be proud of when I walk around, someone who people are eager to talk to. And another thing that I feel goes understated in Christian circles, and something I feel like is super important for men, is fitness. A lot of science articles say that, behavioral science says if you don't grow up before 14 in a house full of fitness, you're unlikely to pick up the habits it requires to stay fit. And it goes understated, but your physical being is so important, you know. And my dad has always been fitness orientated, running, gym. We have a little mini gym in the house. Ever since I was little, I've been doing press ups with him. And when you get to my age now, I'm 27 now, and I already have that regime of fitness of I need to keep fit. I know my physical body is important, and I see how it's lacking across the board in many other men. It's not something I can take pride in that, oh, it's my decision, but I've had that trained in me since childhood. And it's not as if my dad was pressurizing me to go to gym or anything, but I saw it. I saw he maintained his level of fitness. I saw that he loved to run, he loved to exercise, he loved to walk. And it's not to be understated in the Christian, you know, circles. I feel like it's something we should really pay attention to, especially now, you know, when things have been attributed to things like obesity and whatnot. You know, I've seen my dad get his belts in karate, um, maintain his healthy habits. You know, I remember the first time I lapped him when we went running. You know, that was a surreal moment. I couldn't believe it, but I did. You know, he's slow now. But I also remember when I beat him at chess, when I beat him at Scrabble, and these are some of my favorite memories because it's organic. It's to me, well, I think mom and I are alike in the sense that we like our quiet board games. My sister and dad are more, they prefer the drama and TV side of things. But I thank God for that. I thank God that, you know, I can look back at memories of us playing Scrabble, and those are some of my most cherished memories, you know. And I was thinking about when Uncle Justin asked me to talk about this, I thought about First Chronicles 28. And it's a long passage about where King David King David is told by God that he can no longer build, he's shed too much blood and he can't build the temple. But one thing that stands out to me and should stand out to all of us is the fact that King David prepared a plan. He planted the trees, he prepared the cedars, he prepared the marble, he had everything ready for Solomon to implement. And you know, there's a Japanese proverb that says, you know, the best time to plant a tree is now. And even in relation to climate change, that can be applied, you know. That's something our society should take into account. But in terms of fatherhood, that's something that is very important because I can see that I can see the many different ways that not only spiritually, but my father has planted seeds for me to reap, you know. Um, I think about how even the pride that he has in me acts as a security blanket. I can see how, you know, when I look at my life and my sister's life, I see success. You know, I'm glad that my parents can look at us and see success, but that is because of seeds that they planted. And in effect, we are sitting underneath the shade of the trees that they planted. You know, and dad has always been a promoter, and he does this to everybody, not just to us. You know, he always he uses his gifts to make us look good, and I think everyone who meets him will say the same. You know, and you know, dad ensures he's always a provider in many ways, from everything from CVs to job applications to life perspectives. And I was talking to his sister, dad's older sister, and she was telling me all the different jobs dad had growing up, everything from film, documentaries, theater, doing this, doing that. And being able to build on that wealth of experience, even in a different environment, is so invaluable. And as a community, it's something I mentioned even in church last year about how we have this community of fathers in church who are so diverse. We've got Uncle Jojo, I can see, who's had such a variety of jobs, such a depth of knowledge in different things. Uncle Justin, engineering in different places you've worked, and Uncle Mark, who's worked in many places across England too and Nigeria. Tona, who's now a dad and you've got experience in so many different places. And this is fatherhood too. Fatherhood is being in a position of mentorship. And as Christians and as dads, I feel like you guys are in position to impart and teach. But even just by being there, it's such an invaluable position. And as a community, particularly now, majority of us in this conversation are African. It's so important for us to see each other as a whole and stay united, because it's so easy for us to fragment in the world outside our own. And trust me when I say that, being in France now and interacting with different people, it's so clear how the stratospheres work in different places. The CEO knows the CEO because their father knows this guy. The father of this end company also worked for this father of the other company. Things are linked. Things are linked, and it's important for us. I know I'm talking about career, but career is part of who we are. It's important for us to maintain our links within ourselves too. You know, it's so important. We can't forego. We have to see the richness in our connections, and I thank God for that. I thank God that I'm not sure if Pastor Yemi is here, but Pastor Yemi is one of my favorite people too. He's one of those people who he sees the value in connection. He sees the value in imparting, in being a source himself, and I'm so glad for his life. Um, and then from a spiritual level too, it's funny growing up under my dad's teaching, and I've traveled around the world myself, and it's funny because whenever I travel and I go to church, it often makes me skeptical because I'll be sitting in church thinking, my dad can preach better than this, My dad's a better preacher than this guy. And I know it's not competition, but I thank God for that solid. When you have a solid base, it's now easier for you to explore other different modes of thought and ways of thinking and come back to your own foundation. And it's important to explore. I feel like it is necessary to explore um, different modes of thought and different ways of thinking, but it's equally important to grow up in a fenced area, um, with a strong foundation. And I thank God for that. I thank God for the anointing on my dad's life and seeing the continuous sacrifices he makes for people, especially with his time. Um, that initially used to annoy me. Being a child, we'd be stuck in the car for 2 hours when dad was meant to pray for someone for 5 minutes. Or we'd go to this meeting, go to that meeting. And the continual sacrifices for people it's not something you can ever be rewarded for on this earth. And that sort of selflessness is definitely God-given. But now, especially the older I get, when I look at Uncle Tona, Uncle Bobga, people who have left, who have started families, businesses, I see the value, you know. I mean, even I'm closer to Tona and Bobga, and I can see they've seen me since I was young, and I've seen them since they were young and grew up, and to see the impact on their lives, it's impossible for me not to thank God for my dad and his selflessness and his time, you know. And it's something I'm beginning to practice. I feel This is what Jesus would have done. This is how Jesus would have spent his evenings with Zacchaeus. This is how he chit chatted with the woman at the well. Being a physical manifestation of the good news is what God calls us to be. And it's not easy because I know that it's difficult. I've seen dad waking up in the middle of the night to go here, to pray for people, to do a naming, to do a wake. And there's frequently no immediate compensation for that kind of work. Pastor John is here. Of course, Pastor John knows that too. There's no immediate reward for it, hardly ever. And you can't do it for earthly reward. And this kind of selflessness is not natural. But I believe that's what God calls us to, and it's something we should pray for. And it's definitely grounded me in my faith. And it's easy to believe in a loving Father too, when you have one. And for those of us who haven't, it's you've got people like Pastor John, my dad. You've got pastors all around us who bring God's love to us. And the more I work in different environments, live in different spaces, the more and more I really appreciate my dad, because it's rare to see. And there's so many people wandering around looking for validation from the world. But I don't need to. I don't need that external validation. I know my roots, I know where I come from, I know my lineage, I know I'm loved, I know God loves me. And that fact alone is a success. I'm already a success because of that. And I thank God for that. I thank God that, my dad has been a priest over his home, and I thank God for his life. It's been, his 27 years of sonship and 27 years for his fatherhood too. So I'm his first son, his only son. And he has my little sister too. So I thank God. I thank God for my dad's life. I thank God for fatherhood. I pray that in this men's conference we dive deeper into what it means to be a father. I hope we realize how important it is, especially now in the age of social media, in the age of racial crisis all around, to be an African father, to be a Black father. It's so important that your children get their validation from you, and that remains unshakable. My pride is in my dad. My identity is in my dad, and nothing can shake that. Um, so I really thank God for that. I thank God for Pastor John too, because Pastor John has also been a dad to me and my family in Newcastle. So thank you all for listening. That was my testimony.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you very much. As a young man, that Daniel did say there that someone had told him was fast